Hey everybody, it's Carrington-Russell here. I just wanted to have a quick note right before we dive into this awesome interview that I am super grateful for everyone who has been commenting lately, who has been sharing the channel. I honestly couldn't do this without you guys. I am a one-man team doing these interviews, so I really appreciate you sharing about this channel. There's so many resources and inspiration on here that I just really want every author or aspiring author or authors who are trying to level up to receive. So I really appreciate you sharing the word about this channel. And most importantly, I'm super grateful that a lot of you have been commenting what authors you would love to see on here. So if there is anyone that you would like to see that you haven't yet mentioned, definitely comment below. But let's dive into this awesome interview. I'll see you guys soon. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kaya Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of Kick Butt Heroines and Delicious Men in Dark Romantic Worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. To say that I've stalked this author is an understatement. He is well loved for his dark romance and is currently sitting at number 76 on the entire Amazon store for his recent release, Dance of Deception. We are talking to the one and only Jagger Cole. How are you today?
Good. I'm good. You have a much better you have a catchphrase. I don't have a catchphrase. Like,
Need to work on that.
yeah, I was like you had this whole thing and I'm like I write books.
You write phenomenal books, so maybe that's
Jagger
what
Cole writes books.
we can brainstorm after this, I feel. It's like a weird situation when somebody comes on and says, "I'm so impressed by what you've been doing." But I am. Like, you have been smashing goals. I think I first noticed you probably about a year ago. I think you came on and I was seeing everyone post about you on TikTok and just devour your books. And you have just been snowballing uphill. And so when you decided to come on, I was like, finally, I can't wait to dive into this brain of yours. So I would love if you could actually take me back from the start, should I say, as to why you even started writing and how you found publishing for the first time.
That's a good question. I had written as like a kid, I wrote like weird little picture books and stuff. And my mother is actually in the publishing industry on like the teacher side of things and kids books and things like that. And so I I've actually never really made that connection before, but well, I am my parents.
Right.
But yeah, so I'd written for when I was a kid. I was an English major at first in college before I switched, and I was basically in this like quest to never have an office job. So I just did like anything I could to not have an office job, and one of those things was a copywriter for a it's really weird. I think they're gone now. It was like some like Martha Stewart-esque kind of home goods website. I have no idea how I got this job. Like literally, gun to my head, I could not remember how I got this job. I was fired from that job, so I was a shitty copywriter for rugs and towels. But yeah, and so at some point along the way, I got into fan fiction. I was like reading it, and then I was like, starting to write some. And I think that was right around when 50 Shades came out. I don't like when people like carpetly shit on 50 Shades of Grey. Like we've all read it. We all know what the book is. It's is it the best book you've ever read? No. But it blew the doors open to what modern contemporary, popular romance could be and in terms of markets and its readership. And it wasn't I think it destroyed that kind of image of tattered paperbacks that your aunt would hide in the bathroom or something. And like my grandmother read like Danielle Steele novels and hid them. And it was this it's always like this thing, like these like church ladies that read this like dirty romance and bodice rippers and 50 Shades changed all that. And I don't think it's an amazing book, like in terms of its writing quality, but like who cares? It's a good story. It hits all the tropes. It hits all the story beats. So I read it and I was like, obnoxiously, I was like, oh, I could do that. And no one's doing that like E.L. James, but that just kind of got me on that sort of like the romance things, the track, I guess. And I read like a lot of random stuff, and I I really have an appreciation for just genre fiction in general. Like and I think not even just romance, but a lot of it just gets like just shit on all the time. Like, it's like, oh, it's a paint by number story and they're all the same. And it's like, yeah, but like every Jack Reacher book is exactly the same, but no one's complaining. And they're also not. And every romance book isn't exactly the same. Like, sure, are there like two people who are different and they overcome the differences and they find love in the end? Well, yeah, like that's why you read it. Like you read horror because you want to be scared. You read, splatterpunk or gore horror because you want to be grossed out and like thrilled and terrified. So yeah, I was writing fan fiction mostly for Harry Potter. Um, and those will never see the light of day, but they people like them. I mean, I got like feedback. I was like on like fan fiction sites and I was doing this and then I read this like Reddit thread about randomly because Reddit's like my go-to time waster for all things time wasting. And there was some random thread in a sub I wasn't subscribed to about romance writing, and it had this whole write-up of this guy who was writing romance, and like I was like, holy shit, like people are like out there making a living doing this. And I take forever to like not forever to do something, but I take forever to like plan something. So like I spent like 9, 10 months like plotting and like figuring out all the ins and outs and studying authors and like reading a shitload of books. And I had all my ducks in a row. I had the website, I had all this stuff, and I launched my first book. And like 3 days later, COVID hit. And it was I feel like saying COVID was a good thing for your career is just an awful thing to say in every capacity. But my job was in the city. I live outside New York, and my job was in the city and was very client facing. And obviously, that wasn't happening. I wasn't taking clients out to steak dinners in the middle of COVID. So I kind of got like furloughed. Like I got like paid to not come to work. So that kind of opened up. I was lucky in that capacity that I mean, not, it wasn't a picnic. It was, fucking COVID and I had two small children, but, I got to be home and just writing and just kind of seeing what worked and what didn't. And a lot of it didn't work. And I was, I was really into like writing these like shorter kind of like insta love stories, mostly because like I had read a bunch of like Frankie Love and Hope Ford, and I didn't trust myself to write a full book. I was like, like a whole novel, that's insane. Like who can write a full book and like ever? And I didn't do so well with like shorter kind of insta lovey stuff. It didn't. I don't think it was really clicking with me either. Like I had more to say, but I was like condensing these stories into these little short things. And I guess one day I was like, screw it, like I'm gonna try. And I wrote Savage Air, which was a like a mafia kind of academy thing, and it did better than anything I'd written before. And I was like, okay, like this is calling to me. This works. I started to kind of like go down the rabbit hole and read like way more just dark romance in general, and just like, and I really got a taste for it. Like I really, I'd read romance books before, and I think I'd actually shied away from the darker stuff. Where it was like, oh, like that's you can't read about that stuff, and then I was like morbidly into it.
There's actually a couple of things I want to say off of that as well.
Yeah,
With the opening, as you said, with 50 Shades of Grey. And then this also goes back to Twilight, Hunger Games, 50
yeah,
Shades of Grey. All of those, they really do cop shit. But ironically, yes, we've all read them, we've all watched them, but also, as you said, it was the opening of those genres in those times. So it actually created a massive opportunity for a lot of authors thereafter. What I find interesting is your how you naturally pivoted and shifted into what you write now. And I kind of relate to a degree as well when you said, oh, dark romance, you kind of stayed away from it a little bit. I did the same. I came from a fantasy romance background, contemporary romance, and it wasn't until my co-author was like, do you want to write dark romance? I was like, ooh, I don't know about this one. As a writer, what I quite enjoy is, I guess, pushing the boundaries perhaps with it, that it's not necessarily a conventional relationship either. And I think in the modern day that we're in, it's a really good place to express what relationships could look like. And yes, of course, sometimes we want a little bit of a healthy balance, and that's what we definitely in real life people should have. But I wonder then after you had that, you went from academia. So what I love is that you then did your research on the genre itself. You're reading other authors. You're sort of getting a reader expectation as to what they wanted. So when you realized that this particular book was more of a hit for you, what was your plan of action then thereafter? And when did you notice the snowball effect in your career?
That series for sure. I mean, it was I wrote this book. The premise was there's like this exclusive Ivy League kind of. And actually, it was high school, which is like in retrospect, I'm like what was I doing running a high school? Like that's a little. I mean, they were all seniors. They were all like actually some of them were 19, just to be like I don't know, they were academically challenged or something. But yeah, so I introduced these. It's this like fancy pants exclusive school that does not, as a lot of the genres are like there are these mafia schools that cater towards like the heirs of Mafia. That's actually my next series after the one I'm in now is going to be a next gen that's the exact premise. But in this one, I had this idea of like what would happen if you stuck these like Mafia kids in with regular students and so there's like these three guys on this campus, and they're like the rock stars of campus because they're like, the heirs to these, Bratva um, empires, and they're ruthless and they're tattooed, and the guys on the cover look 25, and it was fun. And I introduced the hero of book one, and then he had his two friends, and like the plan was three books, and like each book just kept getting more and more new readers and more reviews and better ranks and it just more buzz. And it was like, okay, well, like, why would you not write more of this? So I kind of pivoted and wrote books 4, 5, and 6 for that. And actually, 5 and 6, because I was a newer author, they were oddly a duet within a 6-book series, which is a choice. Not necessarily a choice I would make again, but I mean, it's still two of my favorite books I've written is that duet. But before that first book, before Savage Air, I had this like, yeah, just like it was like a self doubt. Ultimately, it was just this like, I can't write a full book. Like, how could I ever do that? Like that's, and I'm a fast writer, and I'm a heavy plotter, and so it's once I'm actually writing the book, it's just I can write a lot of words in a day if I'm not self editing. If I'm just like puking words out on a page, I can really crank. And it was more like plotting. It was like, how do you work your brain through like that much of like a story arc, and a lot of it just comes down to just reading more books and just kind of like learning the craft. And a lot of it I did read books. I mean, I read Jamie Gold's beat sheet for romance authors was like super helpful, and just like how do you plot, especially coming from like short little insta letters, which doesn't necessarily there's not necessarily time for a plot. It's kind of like my car broke down and the mechanic is hot and now we're married. Chapter 2, like, and writing a novel was like, how do you expand? I mean, that's the basic premise is two people love happy ever after, but like how do you make that an engaging, fun story for people to read? And I'd written 3 books, and then I wrote a fourth, and then a fifth and sixth. And by the end of that series, it was like, well, like I guess I'm writing longer books now. Sorry, in between the short stuff, I had written like a series of like novellas that were Bratva, and like those, to be fair, like those had actually started to do really well too. And that was kind of like a gap where I was like, okay, I can write like a 35,000, 40,000 word book, and like that's hardly, it isn't really a novel, it's like a novella. And then when I you know got myself to like 75,000 words, 80,000 words, it was like, whoa, like I'm writing like War and Peace over here. And like, and it became easier, and it more fun. I love the world building, and I love building things out. And that's kind of why, like, kind of since that Academy series, like the Savage Airs, all my stuff has just been in one universe. Like all my books exist in one world. And I love when authors do that. I've read other people in romance and in other genres that kind of do that. Like there is a thriller author who was big in like he had a Facebook ads course actually on Mark Dawson. And he had like a thriller series called like the John Milton books, I think. And it was like a very, it's Jason Bourne with a different branding, but it's why not? I mean, I like Jason reading and watching Jason Bourne. So, and then there were spin-offs within that world of like, his former protege, she becomes like a detective or something, and like her daughter then becomes like a special agent. And like, so I was like, that's cool. I mean, it's cool from a reader perspective because there's all these entryways into your world. It's not just like what book of yours. It's like, and it's not like all my books are like one giant series and you have to read this book and then this book. Like they're just books, but they just happen to exist in this universe. And it's I find it really fun to write because you get to sprinkle in Easter eggs. You get to like have characters that had their happy ever afters in one series. They now appear in another series and as a couple, and it's all leading to this kind of this next gen thing that I'm doing later. So yeah, it's just all kind of it's snowballed from there. Where it's just I I have found my niche, I guess. But
I have so many questions off of this, but I'll go one at a time because I know I'll overwhelm both of us. But I am kind of curious in how you transitioned to full time because it's obviously the dream. It's what we all want to do, but it is hard because you're used to having whatever the full-time job or part-time, multiple jobs may be. And then you go into, you're the boss, you need to structure your own hours, but then you're also taking
Mhm.
on all of the other aspects of the business because it's not just writing. So that then involves if you're in a position to delegate, where do you delegate? What do you do? How was that transition to going full time for you? Or was it not as bad because you were kind of already in the COVID era, staying at home and writing consistently, maybe?
I wouldn't say it was hard. It was terrifying. It was like there's a again. I had the luck of I went back to work sort of in like a sort of capacity. And then at that point, like books were picking up. I was like, becoming more read, I guess. And I took a few months. I was very lucky to be able to take a few months off from work, not paid, but like kind of like I'm going to not work for 3 months, but I will still have a job when I come back if I come back. And I did that for maybe like two or three releases in a row where I was like, okay, like make this work because do you really want to go back to like just being having to write like at night while you're tired and after your kids fall asleep or on weekends? Like that sucks. And like doesn't suck. I mean, you do what you have to do, and it's part of the starving writer aesthetic, I guess. But by the end of that 3 months, or was it 3 or 4 months, I kind of made the decision where I was like, okay, like things are on the rise. Now is the time. And my wife was still working, and we kind of obviously made that decision together. Where I was like, hey, I'm quitting my job to write horny books about mafia guys, and that's always an interesting conversation. But it worked, and I made the jump. The hard part is how outsourcing and delegating and stuff like that is I am I'm not type A, but like I have a hard time letting go of control of things like that. I held on to them for way too long, and like that the best thing. It's hard too because you're like, well, but that costs money, and like, what if I don't have oversight over it? It's like you can always have oversight over something. It's not like you're going to outsource like book teasers and then your designer is just going to start like publishing them for you, like without you seeing them. I mean, it's like there's always a check and a balance kind of thing. But I was so reluctant to outsource anything, and finally just I just had to. Like it got ridiculous, and stress levels were absurd. And I ended up going with a PR company with who I still use, Valentine PR, and they're great. And they took over a lot. And even then, when I first started off, it was like, so you guys can do all these things. Cool. Well, you do those three things, and I'll just do these other 497 things on this side. That's fine. And they were like, you pay us to do those other 497 things as well. Like, we're happy to do them. And like slowly, I still do a lot of those things. It's just because I'm an idiot and I can't. Like the other day, I was like, why am I still doing my own newsletter? Like, I hate newsletters. I like sending them out because I actually really love getting responses back from readers. Like I love getting the emails back that are not like the automatic reply. I'm out of the office. Like people respond to the email like, oh, thanks a lot. Like I missed this release, or like if I have a question, they respond. Like I love that. It's the sitting down and being like fuck, it's Friday at like 9:30 a.m. and I'm supposed to send a newsletter at 10 o'clock a.m. and I guess I have to put that together now. And like, it's like, why am I doing this? Like, I have a whole PR team. I have an amazing PA who's very capable and very happy to do all these things. So, anyways, it's delegating and things like where I was like, I'm going to do my own translations. Like, I'm going to do my own translations. And then, like 4 years later, I'm like, I haven't done a single translation. So, yes, when a company in a country has reached out recently and been like, we'd like to do your translations. It's like, yes, like, even though part of me in my head is like, nah, like I got it. It's like, look, when will you get it, dude? Like it's like, where is this magical point where like you just don't have anything on your plate where you can like figure out Italian translations of your books? I mean, like it's never going to happen. So yeah, it's letting go. And I feel like I see that I have a lot of author friends some who are amazing at just being like, yeah, I write books. That's what I do. And somebody else does this, somebody else does this. And that's it. And life is good. I like to have a little bit more fingers in the pies than that and know what's going on. But, I see people who are the opposite, who are very, very successful and pumping out books and burning the hell out because they're doing literally everything. And it's crazy to me. Like, I mean, people who are like top 50, top 40, in the store authors, and they don't even have a PA. And it's like, it's like, what are you doing?
Everything you said is like completely valid. And it's like weird because the more that you grow and grow and grow, the more that you do realize that you have to delegate just for your own sanity. I have a quick question. If you are uncomfortable in answering this, you do not have to, but I'm curious, does your wife read your books?
She feels guilty that she's behind too. Because they actually was that I think that was this morning actually. She was like showing me her Kindle. She's like, so this is the new one, right? I was like, yeah, that's the new one. She's like, do I have to have read anything before? And I was like, no. Like I was like, because you're like two full series behind. She's like, yes, I am. So yeah, no, she reads them. She doesn't read a whole lot of romance, but she reads mine, so that's fun. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of amusing in a way. I mean, it's yeah, it's funny. I mean, I not many people know I'm not like an out author to people. I have it's probably like a dozen friends or something who know that I do write romance. None of them know my pen name. One of them knows my pen name, but he's good because I have one of my best friends. I told a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, so this is what I'm actually doing, and he doesn't know my pen name, but he's a great person, but he just cannot keep a secret to save his life. So like, I mean, this is maybe a year ago. I was at his wife's birthday party with like a bunch of her coworkers and stuff. And I'm just like at a barbecue and talking to people. And this guy comes up, he's like, oh, he's like, you're the guy that writes romance books. And I was like what? Like, come on. Like, and this is like my friend's wife's coworker's husband. I was like, great. Thanks for keeping it on the down low, my friend. Yeah, so it's not many people know what I like. My parents don't know what I write. I have crafted a horrible lie that I just keep adding to every year. It's getting insane. Like at this point, I just feel guilty because there's now it's hard to break it because it won't just be like this is what I do. And I'm not embarrassed about what I write. I just don't want to have those conversations ever with anyone. Like I don't want to talk to my mom about how I write smut. I mean, like I just don't need to. Like it's and some of it is like, like I know I live in a pretty like liberally leaning area, but like I never want my kids. I have a 6-year old and an 8-year old, and I don't need or want them to have instances where like their friends are like, oh, your dad writes dirty books, or like as they get older, or like if they have friends whose parents are like, yeah, you can't go hang out over there because this guy, what does he write? because I don't need to deal with it's again, it's not a personal embarrassment. I just don't need to deal with anyone else's bullshit with it. It's just easier to not. So yeah, in saying that, I have concocted this absurd lie to my friends and family about that I'm a ghostwriter writing crime fiction books, and I have probably alluded to more than I should that I write for James Patterson. So that is a lie. So that's the hard part now. If I ever come clean, it's like, yeah, here's what I actually write. Also, mom and dad, I've been lying to your faces like extensively for 5 years now, which is weird. So
I really respect this though, because I think perhaps it's not a conversation that is had enough as well between romance authors. And that is the fact that when people do know that you write romance authors, it does open up an avenue of very random conversations with strangers
yeah,
at parties. And I think when you're going into it, it's good to have an idea as to whether you want to safeguard your personal life, or the moment you start telling people that, you will have all types of different conversations. I can't tell you the amount of people's inner workings and relationships that I've heard of unsolicited, that I'm just like,
yeah.
"Thank you for telling me the deepest, darkest secrets. I didn't need to know that, but I will remember that. Thank you. That was a good one." I love that you have that around you, and I love that your wife supports you. That's really, really special to have as well. So fantastic. One thing I do love talking about on here is burnout, because it's not discussed enough. It's something that we really have to watch. I've seen so many authors, just phenomenal writers, not be able to be in this career long term because they go so hard that they burn themselves out, and it just destroys them for years. So, with yourself, as you said, you're a fast writer, you're rapid releasing, there's a high demand on these, having such a pace. What are the things that you put in place so you don't burn out? And have you experienced burnout before?
I was going to say if you have tips for for
I'm the
not burning
same.
out, I'd love to hear them. I I have burned out a couple times. Not hard, but enough where I was like, gotta pump the brakes. I mean, I've been, yes, I write fast, but I have been rapid. I mean, we're talking like 6, 7 weeks between releases for like 2.5 years now or something. And that's not sustainable. Like as the short version, it's not at all sustainable. And that's kind of one of my goals starting now really is the releases. Part of that is my own thing is I like being able to serve up the next book quickly. Part of it's an Amazon thing that we're all slaves to the algorithm. And I think going forward, I'm going to be giving a little bit more space in between series. So like having like the, 6 to 8 weeks in between books, but then giving myself a, a while to just catch up. And because the burnouts, it's real. I mean, it's always kind of lurking there. And I feel like it's a very American trait, and it's such a shitty toxic thing, but this whole like mindset of like rise and grind. There's like this like you wake up every day and you just hit the grind. It's grind, grind, grind. And it's like that's how you get success is you grind. It's like no, that's how you burn the fuck out. Like that's how like your mental health goes completely down the tubes because and that's also something no one talks about is that like you wouldn't tell yourself to like wake up and run a marathon every single day. You would like anybody would eventually just collapse doing that. And there's this idea that if you just like work harder, work harder, work harder, you can make more money, you can make more success, you can live that Kardashian, Instagram bullshit existence or whatever. And there is stigmas around just even basic stuff like anxiety, depression, where it's like no one talks about it. And like you would talk about it if you had a cast on your arm. Like, what's that? Oh, I sprained my elbow, I twisted my ankle, I fell downstairs and like busted my head open. Like, but someone's like, oh, like, what are you taking those pills for? It's like nothing. And, it's like for anxiety, because like we all have it. We live in the modern world. Like, so that's definitely a priority for me is like my own mental health going forward, because I haven't like burned out in like spectacular fashion, but I think it rarely is in like spectacular fashion. I think burnout happens where like things just start falling through the cracks where you get to a release and you realize like you forgot to do XYZ, or like you send off your cover stuff and you're like, oh shit, like I never actually wrote a blurb for that. And it's like the things, if things fall through the cracks, your patience for just life in general, goes away. There's no lubrication in the gears, like everything kind of grinds. And especially if you're busy and you have a life and you have a spouse and you have small children, like that just becomes this thing. So I mean, like, yeah, I've been working on it the last probably like year, where I'm like, okay, like my mental well-being is important for me, people around me and stuff. And like stress is a real thing. And like it's easy to be like, oh, it's just stress, but like stress will literally kill you. So to spending the last year like getting my own like anxiety and depression like under control, and like figuring out what works for me, and part of that is obviously slowing down. I haven't really yet on that in that regard. I'm like not practicing when I'm preaching right now, but I'm thinking about practicing when I'm preaching to avoid the burnout. Yeah, I mean, I do things like I do a lot of my own graphics and stuff. So Photoshop for me is like a writing break where I can like switch gears and just like go into the zone where I'm just like fucking around in Photoshop. Or I would love to say like I take the time to like, Joe, take a day off and like read a book. I'm like, I don't do that. I don't have time to do that. I'm trying to get more into hobbies. For the past 5 years, I'm like, hobbies? Like, what are hobbies? And I recently bought a 1970 Land Rover. It just looks like one of those like African safari trucks. It's so cool. And it drives badly, but it drives. But it's going to be like my project. And part of it, I was like, I'm doing this as a mental health break. So like if I feel it where I'm like, you need to stop writing right now, that's it. I'll go home. I don't know anything about cars. I mean, I like cars. I can do basic things with cars, but like I think YouTube is going to be my hobby friend here and teaching me how do you change out a gearbox? I have not the fucking slightest clue, but I'm going to know. So as long as I don't lose a finger doing it and not can't type anymore, we'll be fine. So
Thank you. I appreciate you for opening up about that too. It's very weird. I'm having like a mirror effect right now because I've just from what you're saying, a lot of it is relatable for me. And I'm just like, yo, bro, I need to do something about this. But also, it is the factor too when you do have goals and you do have ambition and you just really want to solidify who you are and where you are in the market as well. So I think there's a point that you kind of reach it. You're like, I'm kind of happy with where I'm at, but I'm also not. But you start noticing how your body starts really getting impacted, as you said, with all of those things. So thank you for facilitating
yeah.
that. I want to actually know about your writing. Like, as you said, you're a plotter. So I'm kind of curious if there are still things that you're surprised about as you're writing, if there are any kind of like little pantser moments that get thrown in there. But what your structure looks like? Do you sing Bon Voyage before you're writing? Are you writing 9 to 5? Like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I am a plotter. I mean, I know plenty of pantsers, and pantsers are sociopaths. Like, how do you like what the fuck? Like, how do you sit down? You're like blank page. It's fucking raw dog this. Like, it's like what? What is like that's insane to me. Like, so hats off to the people who can stare at an open page and be like, chapter one, like good sentence, structure, intro to the problems. Like, that's wild to me. I'm envious of it. I'm a fast writer, but it takes me easily 3 times as long to plot a book that it does to actually physically write it. But that's what I do. I mean, I have like structures in my head, and I know I have a good idea of the beats and where they need to go and stuff. And it is definitely good to know the trope before you write the trope, just because you have that's what the expectation is. You have to when you write enemies to lovers, like, well, what is someone looking for with an enemies to lovers book? If you're writing hockey romance, I mean, it's like it's not just writing a romance book that has to do with it has hockey players in it. I mean, there's hockey romance has a little bit of a darker, more feral kind of feeling to it, and like they're animals, but they're dudes who play hockey. It's just like things like that. Yeah, so I mean, I do spend a lot because I like, and I think I'm influenced by like I love reading thrillers, and I've read a lot of twisty books, and I like twists. I like movies and books that have like that, like whoa, like that that, you know, Memento or like The Game with Michael Douglas. You know, you're just like those things where like I love that moment where you can just totally fuck with a reader, where like you have sent them down this path and they're like, I got this figured out. And then something, not something insane. I mean, it's not like, but suddenly aliens like abduct the Mafia king. And you're like, that's something that makes sense, but they can like blow someone's mind. Or like, I think, yeah, it's just a lot of plotting. And what has surprised me, not, yeah, recently, I guess, is trying to make myself acknowledge when it's just diminishing returns, I guess is the phrase, like where I'm spending like, I should be starting the book, but I'm still stuck in this weird part in the midsection. Like I know the ending, but I'm stuck on this weird thing in the middle where I'm trying to plot through and like this one little bit. And I'm like, I'm spending like 2 full days staring at a page, sort of like trying to hack my way through this plot point. And it's like, stop. Like that's diminishing returns. Like start the book. You have 80% of it. Get over yourself. Like you're going to be fine writing a book, but it is 80% mapped out. And then by the time you get to that part, you know your story, you know your characters. And like, so by the time you come to that problem area, it might not even be a problem anymore. Usually isn't a problem anymore because you know these people now, you know these characters, and that you get to that point and it's like what they do just becomes natural. I plot heavily first and then I write very linearly. So I start chapter one, I write chapter, and if I have to be like I don't want to write chapter seven yet, or like I can't write, like it's a real mental struggle to be like, okay, I'll start chapter eight and I'll come back. But I do occasionally, but yeah, mostly it is start to finish. I just write page by page the whole book and then send it to my poor editor who is amazing and works magic on my sometimes illegible first drafts. So yeah.
Well, then what is the process for you when you have a release? Obviously, we have editors involved and then we're doing the cover designs, etc. When it comes to your actual releases, I'm sure you've kind of fine-tuned it now for yourself. What are like the three things that you have to do? Is it that you have to have the newsletters ready to go? Is it the social medias? Is it the arts? Is it the ads? Like, what is it that you find helps you move forward little by little every release?
Delegation. I have a PR company. I have a graphic designer through them who's doing all like the teasers and the countdown teasers and the all the Instagram stuff. I have a PA who, you know, schedules all that stuff. I have someone who does my Facebook ads now because I'm actually pretty good at Facebook ads, but I mean now who knows, that it changes every 4 months. At this point, I probably would be terrible at it, but once upon a time, I was pretty decent at Facebook ads, and I do kind of geek out on like the spreadsheets and figuring out the, you know, the CPCs and the budgets and all this, the numbers. And but it's like I can't do that. Like I have to like outsource that. And this person's he's way better anyways. So why not? Part of that's weird is like relinquishing that control is tough for me, which is weird again because I really am not like a type A like person at all. But in delegating that, it still requires me to I mean, I still have to like create the copy and the creative and like set the budget and like get all the information to him. And then on the graphic design side, it's still like getting teaser quotes and getting whatever have you that they need and talking with my PA about what's going where and how we're scheduled, you know, so it's still involved and stuff. But I think just like getting it in the right mental headspace is probably part of it. I'm not a superstitious person, but let the universe come to me sort of like woo woo mindset. We've as a release, like my PA loves like text to be like, it's gonna hit this rank on this release. And then like I'm like, okay. And like sometimes I'm like, don't say that. Like in that one instance on like release night or the eve of release, I'm like, the universe will show me what it's like. It's honestly, there's a hectic scramble for a bunch of crap every release anyways. I mean, every release I'm like, oh well, like next time, like I won't forget that. And of course the Facebook guy is like, hey, your book releases in 4 days, like I don't have any of your ad stuff. Like right, I knew I was forgetting something. Or like the number of times like it's like 2 days before release and I'm like, I never actually wrote a bonus chapter that is linked in the back of the book. Like there's a link for it in a placeholder file upload, but like there's no real file written yet, let alone uploaded. Like, and now we're down to like 36 hours before the book releases. And you're like, I should write that. And like literally every release, I'm like, but next time, like I will have this. I'll be a grown up and I'll have all of it. Nothing egregious or that terrible, nothing cataclysmic thus far, but knock on wood. But it's only so many balls you can juggle at some point. Maybe that's part of that. That's probably has something to do with like the mild burnout. Is like if I was a little bit more like sharper or more focused, I'd be like, yeah, I have all that stuff.
I feel like you're kind of sharp and focused enough though to write as many books as you do and produce them. So let's not be too hard on ourselves. I'm kind of curious then as to what you would say throughout your writing career, what your greatest challenge has been so far, and then for you personally, what your greatest achievement has been.
Have you ever read the Stephen King book on writing?
No, but I should.
It's good. Yeah, it's like a quasi like autobiography. It's like Stephen King's like it's a sort of autobiography, and it's just kind of it's a short book about being a writer and like sort of his process and talks about his sobriety and things like that too. But he had a great line in there. I read it I think when I first started writing, but there's a line that there's no such thing as writer's block where you like you oh I can't write words. Like you can always write words. You just all you're thinking up is words that you don't like. So it's not writer's block, it's writer's dislike or something where it's and how why you should always write those terrible words down because you can always edit bad words. You can't edit no words. I've been lucky that I've never had it like terribly, maybe because I can like focus on that line of his and like just write the bad, like write a shitty chapter. You can always change it, or at least writing a bad one will show you what not to write or like where not to take this plot. And now you can scratch that off and have narrow your options a little bit more. I had a really hard time plotting out the new one, Dance of Deception, because it was a new series and I was kind of swinging back to like Russian Bratva and Italian and like New York. And yeah, it's a new series and it's introducing, it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of information to have like crammed into one book. And I hope I did that in a good way that wasn't too much. Like, you don't want to be like, here is 5,000 extra, side characters. Like, don't forget their names. And you want to still be remembered that you're telling a story about two people and everything else is kind of accessory to that. But you also want to build this world because there's this whole thing with the ballet. There's a whole thing with the secret society. Like, there's all this stuff. And like, that's a lot of information. And plotting it and trying to make it engaging. And especially as a first book of a series, like, there's certain tropes and there's certain like plot unfoldings that just lend themselves better to like a book one of the, in my opinion, that lend themselves better to a book one of the series. Like if you're plotting a series, like pro tip, like a forced marriage or like some kind of like a enemy, like enemies who then have to like get like for like in Dark Hearts, the series in the Dark Hearts series in Deviant Hearts, that's a great way to start a series. Like if I do say so myself, but I didn't invent that either. Like it's having warring mafia families whose son and daughter have to marry to bury the blood feud. Like it's been done a bazillion times, but it's a great way to start a series because you have now introduced two families worth of people. You have all these characters; they're all related. You bring in the universal fantasy of family and connectiveness, and all this the muddery stuff that we love in a book, and it sets the tone. And they're already literally enemies, so it creates great tension and it just sets up a series perfectly. And so I had ideas of how I would be the best way to set up the series, but like you also don't want to repeat yourself and you don't want to like. I felt like I would there were directions I wanted to take this book that were a little different because I felt like my last series before this, the Memento Mori series, was and it was purposely so, but it was a little repetitive on like the forced marriage sort of like enemies to lovers idea. And I was hammering it in for a reason. Like that was kind of the basis of the series was to do that. I don't look at bad reviews because I'm a fragile little snowflake and I don't know. I can't. I look at I go on Goodreads and I filter by 5 stars and I'm like, show me the praise. Like that's all I do. And I'm like, this is great. Like, well, I feel better now, back to my day. And like, and then every once in a while I'm like, God, all right, I'll look at like the 3 stars. And like there was one that was like recently that was like, on Dance of Deception that was like this was I didn't dislike it, but it was very the plot was the not the plot, but like the framework was very similar to a couple of his last books, and I was like I know it was, but like for the first book in a series, it was really hard to not have that framework because it sets it up so well. But so it was that was a hard book to plot for some weird reason. That was a really hard book to plot, and I've written a couple of duets that were also very very hard to plot. And I do not think I'll be writing any more duets ever. But so those were the hard parts. Greatest achievement. Every author is like, it's bank over rank. Like it's not about what rank you get. It's how the book has legs. Does it have longevity? Does it, hook new readers? Like that is ultimately the important part. But like, damn, does it feel good to see? Like, come on, I mean, like we all want to see a good rank. Like you want to see a real low number next to your book. Of so one of the books in the Memento Mori series hit, I think 23 in the store. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, like, and it didn't last, like you feel amazing. And then like an hour later, it's like me 35. Like, no, 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 go back that way, go back that way. Like throw all the money at the Facebook ads, like take my mortgage, like keep it going. Like this feeling feels good. So I mean, that's like the dragon chasing high of like next book, you gotta like get that rank. And it's so, I can, you know, I know people and who have probably chased rank a little more than they should have at times, where like you're just like pouring money into ads just to hit that rank. You're like, well, like what's the return on that though? Like it's as purely as a study in vanity, it does feel good to see a high rank. But yeah, I mean, seeing a good rank, but also just like it always feels good to have someone tell you they like your book or they love your book, so they love you as a writer. That feels awesome to hear, and it's not like an ego stroking. I mean, all right, it's a little bit of an ego stroking. Personally, that truly is one of the reasons I write. Like, sure, like making a living is generally a good thing, and like being able to like support your family is ideal. But writing books that people like enjoy and like and talk about and truly feel, and stories that like resonate, and someone's hearing, not even like, oh, I loved your book, but like, I really loved your book and I'm on my fifth reread. You're like, that's crazy. Like that's and awesome. Like it's purely an ego thing. It's just like it feels good to like yeah, that was the point, to like I want to write stories that you want to keep reading and you want more of, and like so that feels good. Just like the feedback from people, feedback from readers, feedback from in the form of like and a publisher contacting you, or an audiobook publisher saying we want to turn these into audio. And yeah, just that kind of that feedback, I guess.
I do want to comment too, like, it is nice to hear that. And I love that we joke about it, like, oh, our ego's being stroked. It is a little, but also like we are still people, and it's hard to build your confidence in this industry as well, especially when there's so many phenomenal authors who can be read. And so to a degree, you want to know that you have value, that people are loving your books. And so it's nice when we receive those feedbacks. So for any readers who are watching, thank you. And I do actually want to ask you, you seem very resourceful. So you've mentioned a couple of times in these interviews that you've read particular books on craft and plotting and things like that. And I think these are so immeasurable for so many people. So I would love to know what some of your top resources have been to really, or that you would recommend to authors.
The first one is I like night and day with my own writing, is Universal Fantasy by Theodora Taylor, but I think that she goes by T Taylor for this one. And I mean, she's the romance author, but she has this book that's like a craft book, and it's just principles of what she calls universal fantasy. And it's things like, especially if you've been already been writing before you read it, like you start to read it, and at first you're like, well, yeah, duh, like we all use these things, but you're like, oh, this is why we use these things and why people respond to it. Like, like adding in like the family connections, like, or the example, the best example being, and she uses it in the book, is Beauty and the Beast, where there's so many little bits of that story, the Disney version, movies particularly, that are just like it doesn't just click with people because the story is good. Like there are parts of that story that just really click with people, and one of them is like, a beast that only you can tame, and that's like every bad boy, every alpha hole book ever is like, like the grumpy jerk that only the heroine can tame. And like, in Beauty and the Beast, like he gives her a gift that matters. And it's not just a diamond necklace, it's not a horse, it's a library full of books. And that's something that just means more to Belle than it would anyone else. And it means more to her than any other present would, because it is a tailor made for her perfect present. And with this, it's this room of like infinite books that she could read forever. And that's just like, that's perfect. And the makeover, they like a Pretty Woman makeover scene. Like there's a reason that we use these. There's a psychology behind it. And it's not like I feel like if you start to dig too much into the craft or talk about it, it becomes this sort of like, are you hacking the human condition? And like, but it's just like this, these are just principles of what make a story good. And the other resource was like reading anything by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. She is a fiction writer, but she wrote The Inheritance Games. But before that, she got her doctorate in fandoms. And there's a whole psychology to like the fandom behind book series or TV shows. Like what is it, or pop stars? Like why is it that we, specific to storytellers, like why do we latch onto these? And why do we as animals, like the inordinate amount of time, resources, and all of it that we as humans spend just to tell made up shit to other humans? Like no one else does. Like no other animal does that. And like, we're obviously leagues above other animals in terms of just consciousness. And, it's easy to do now because we live in like comfort and arguably the safest point in human history, in spite of everything going on. Like we're not living in the Middle Ages, we're not living in caves. Like, but even then, even when people were like fighting to like survive a day by just like not dying a million and one different ways from like anything that was out there trying to kill them, or trying to find food or drink water that wasn't going to give them dysentery, like even then people were making up stories around a campfire to entertain themselves and entertain other people. And it's like there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why we're drawn to fiction, and why we latch on to like series or like Star Wars, or why we latch on to Harry Potter, and anything she's written on the craft, or any interview she's given is just worth reading. You're not going to read it and be like, oh, like I have the power now. Like it's just one more thing to kind of think about, where it's like, as you're like, right, like here's the reasons why we gravitate to these sort of like, why do romance books that, introducing, especially in a series that introduces like a group of guys at the beginning, like they all work in one firehouse, they're all in one hockey team, they're all in a gang, they're all in one mafia family, like that doesn't just elegantly set up a multi-book series, it sets it up in a way that means something more than just like 5 people or 6 people. They're connected, they have a family connection, they have a brotherhood, they have these, and that touches monkey brains inside of us in strange ways.
And I would highly
So
recommend for anyone to actually like brush up on psychology and mannerisms and things like that, because the thing is it gives you another understanding or a deeper layer when it comes to character writing. And so they really need to be 3D, the characters. And so if you have somebody doing these things, you really need to understand their psyche and psychology to understand why they're doing certain behaviors and patterns. So I can definitely see how that would benefit.
I think very few people know this. When I first started, like in the first few months of writing, I had the idea to have an author like romance based podcast. And I reached out to a bunch of people, and I interviewed some cool people. I interviewed Melanie Harlow, Renee Rose, I think I interviewed Kay Webster, Lisa Vino. They were cool. Yeah, and it was awesome. And I think it was a fun podcast. And then I unfortunately wrote a book that people actually wanted to read. So all of a sudden I had to start like like shit, I gotta switch track. Like that was a nice distraction while my books weren't selling. And now that I have people reading my books, I need to actually get back into it. So on a hard drive somewhere, I have like 10 interviews with a bunch of romance authors from 2000.
I do have what's called speed dating with an author. Basically, what it is five rapid questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
As an author,
Just in general.
oh, I mean, I'm like falling up the stairs is pretty. That's a winner. As an author, I've uploaded the wrong manuscript for a pre-order before, and that feeling of like click, and then you're like, no, like this like slow motion, like wait, don't, and like then you have to.
Let's wait 72 hours.
Oh my god! And I luckily I had time, but like I had to wait for it to clear review, and at that point I had like 2 hours left or something before I could miss. I would miss the deadline, and I was like just like refreshing for like a day and a half. And I was like, go, and immediately logged in and like got it back to good. But yeah, so that yeah, there we go.
Who has been your favorite character to write and why?
Ooh, that's tough. I never want to say that I like imparting pieces of myself on a character because I'm not, and that makes it. I feel like that takes it to like a weird level. I'm not really. I wrote a book about a an author. The character is an author, and people are like, "Oh, were you writing yourself?" I was like, "No," because in this case, this is like a 35-year-old man having a relationship with like a 19-year-old, and like age gaps really aren't necessarily like my forte, and like I feel I have to get over my own sort of like writing them. And I'm also maybe just like hyper cognizant of being a guy writing romance and like really want to stay away from anything that could be construed as like, oh, he's writing his fantasies. And it's like, I'm good. Like, that's not it. I, that said, I wrote two age gap romances where like the male characters were just really fun to write. One was book four of the Savage Air series. There's a he becomes a professor at their school for funny reasons, but he's a very like Bukowski kind of like. Did you ever watch Californication with David Duchovny? Like, it's a show that's loosely he's supposed to kind of be like a modern day Bukowski, and so, anyways, I wrote a character like that. It felt like there was a little of me in him, but like not really. He was fun because he was just this like foul mouthed, like permanent grump, just like no fucks given. He did not want to be a professor at the school. So like, showing up just to class just like hungover, and the class is like, you can't be hungover. And he's like, well, here I am, so deal with it. And like that was fun because my books are open world or one universe. There are aspects I like bleed into other books. Like this guy, Bastion Pierce, is a writer in that book, but in other later series, there's characters who are reading his latest book or something, or like watching his Netflix adaptation of the Netflix adaptation of one of his books on TV. So, and the other one like that is that I have this band that just keeps popping up in my books because I wrote one rock star romance, and like pro tip, like never write a rock star romance. But if you want to sell books, don't write a rock star romance. But I have a background in music, so it was, and I once upon a time was a tour, like a gigging musician. So it was fun to write. I wrote this book called Broken Lines about like a rock star who's like, he's kind of like Noel Gallagher from Oasis. And at the height of his fame, like one of his best friends dies, and he just like dips out and just disappears. And no one's seen him in years. And this young reporter has to go find him. And he's living like a recluse on this island in Maine. And he's a musician. So like I have a music background. I'm from Maine. Like, I grew up on the shore in the ocean. So it's like I there was a lot of me in that one too. So they're just fun to write characters like that, I guess. Like where you can bring in like not you, but like aspects that have influenced you as a person, I guess. And yeah, those two were fun to write.
What are the three words that best describe you?
I don't know. This is weird. Hardworking. It sounds so lame.
Good.
I'm like hardworking. Um, I'm gonna go with three words to describe me at this present moment, which is excited to write the rest of this series. That's not one word, but
We'll take
we'll
it.
go through phrases. Excited, pursuant with writing this series. A little tired and optimistic.
It's a good mix. It
Yeah,
usually comes with the tired.
yeah.
Yeah. What is the song that best describes you? Or is there a particular band or artist that you listen to and repeat while writing?
I've had two songs stuck in my head for like a month right now, and they don't describe me, but they're just taking up free real estate. And one is my 8 year old wants to do a dance routine with two of her friends in an upcoming second grade talent show, and that is to Wrecking Ball. So I've got Wrecking Ball just playing on repeat. Like Miley's just there. And the other one, I have no idea. You ever get like a song stuck in your head? You don't even know where it came from, but it's just there. I've had the Willy Wonka song stuck in my head for easily a month and a half. Like the like da 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 da
Poor thing. You really are tired, aren't you?
da 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 da. It's like, yeah, I've got the Willy Wonka song stuck in my head. That does not describe me though.
You sure, right now?
The right now it might. I listen to it's funny. I mean, I listen to a wide range of music, but to write to, it either has to be music with no lyrics, because that you're trying to write words and someone's saying words into your ear. It's just impossible unless it's a song I've heard 9,000 times. Like in that case, it just doesn't even affect me. Like just like one of those bands where like everyone's listened to like a rush of blood to the head like a gazillion times. I mean, I'm 40, so that I listen to classical a lot. There's this guy, he's great for writing like drama and like, well, actually there's a few, but this guy Olafur Arnolds, I actually stuck him on. I put him in the book I just wrote actually in Dance of Deception. There's a part where the heroine is dancing. She's a ballet dancer, but she's dancing to this song, and it's just this classical. It's like a neoclassical. He's a Icelandic composer that does a lot of like synthesizer beats mixed with orchestral sounds and like string quartets, and he's cool. But yeah, a lot of like I definitely write to a lot of like cinematic like movie scores, like a lot of Hans Zimmer. Can throw like the Inception soundtrack on and just write, and yeah.
Well, the last question is, what is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about? But you did mention before that you're a musician, so I don't know if that is it.
Yeah, I mean, I was in bands growing up and into my 20s, and nothing that famous. But odd as it may sound, being a professional musician, I worked in a lot of bars and restaurants. So I I've won awards for cocktail bartending before, like speed awards and creating cocktails for specialty brands. And I don't do flair, like I can't juggle the bottles or anything because I think that's obnoxious and probably just waste stuff. But I can light things on fire. I can pour fire between two shakers. Yep.
Noted. So
I
when
am fun at parties.
when I see you one day at a book signing, cocktails you will be making, and I'm excited to watch us and be like, yay! But I hope they taste good because that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's segued these days into cooking. I'm actually a really good cook. I another random job I had. I've cooked in professional kitchens before, and I'm 40 years old, and I've gone just about my entire life without having an office like 9 to 5 regular job. So mission accomplished.
I have had so much fun today. Let us know, where do we need to find you, and most importantly, what's coming out soon.
You can find me on all the things. I'm on TikTok. I'm at author Jagger Cole. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and my Facebook group is Jagger Coles Rebel Readers, and it's fun. What's coming up next? I have 6 books planned for this series, for the Darkest Dance series. There is Dance of Ruin coming out next. That's in late April. And then there's a book called Dance of Madness that's coming out early June. And then there's 3 more books planned in the series. The problem is as I'm writing them, there's like a 7th book that's coming to mind. And I don't know. It's writing a 7 book series is hardcore though, so I don't know. But one of the books in this series as a little, I'm like not hugely sharing this, but I would like to start. I'm writing a romance in one of these books in
Oh.
this series, so which feels like a good time to write it. I mean, I'm married to a woman, but it's like that came up. Someone was like, "So how are you going to write 2 guys?" I'm like, "Well, how am I going to write any?" I mean, because it's fiction, because it's like other people write about people fucking aliens. I mean, like it's,
This is going to be the one that gets you to number one.
after this series comes the next gen series that I've like legitimately been thinking about and kind of like cultivating and coming up that pages of notes for like 2 years. And I'm really excited for that. And that'll be probably the beginning of 2026.
After this six slash maybe seven book series.
Yeah. So maybe like spring 2026 so that I don't lose my mind. But
Accountable.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And who knows, we might watch this space and get you back on next year.
So I'm here. I'm there.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you on the next episode, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for having me.